I'm not entirely sold on your characterization that Hillary did the exact same crime.
The FEC disagrees.
Okay. So in terms of the novel law, so my understanding, or here's my notes here at least.
Alvin Bragg's
the Bragg case,
there you go.
Yeah, was legally complex but not unprecedented. So New York routinely elevates falsified business record charges to felonies when used to conceal another crime like tax fraud or campaign finance violations.
Can you show me this? You acknowledge I don't have all the facts in front of me, but the Bragg case going after Trump, this had to do with the payments to Stormy Daniels, right? It was a misdemeanor that was beyond the statute of limitations, right? So they changed it to say, actually, he committed a crime by falsifying documents to commit the misdemeanor, right? That way that the statute of limitation wasn't ran out. So far, we're both in agreement?
I think so. Yeah, okay. I mean, they owe it to campaign finance violations, which is what it was charged for, right?
I debated this at the time. It's been a while, but it was something like this, that there was 3 parts to their claim, that they had to prove these 3 parts in order to make this a felony. The first part was that Trump falsified documents, his team falsified documents. The second part was to affect the election. And the third part was while committing some sort of other crime, such as tax crimes, falsification of other documents, etc. Does that sound right, that there were 3 parts to this? You agree with that?
I'm not aware, but
okay.
Sure.
I believe that was the case. I thought it was universally accepted. Perhaps you have information that I was unaware of.
I just don't know the details.
Can you show me that ever occurring in New York or any other state that's ever occurred, that they've charged someone with a crime using those 3 platforms like that?
Just like that, I'm sure I can't. But so I mean, it doesn't mean it never has happened. But
if it hasn't,
the claim that I made specifically, just to be clear, the claim I made specifically is that New York routinely elevates falsified business record charges to felonies when used to conceal another crime, for example, tax fraud or campaign finance violations. That's the claim.
My claim is that if it's never been done, the exact legal framework that they did, that would you acknowledge if it had never been done, then it is a quote novel theory. In other words, new, it's not been done. They may have done things like that, but this particular theory had never been used. I'm not asking you to admit, yes, it had never been used. I'm asking you to admit if it had never been used, then my statement is correct, that it was a novel legal theory.
Okay, so your specific claim was it was a made up novel law to go after Trump, or a made up novel law to go after Trump.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think if there's a lot of legal precedent for that sort of thing, I think a lot of times we have like very hyper unique scenarios, right, that require that do require quote unquote novel. I don't think novel means is like a damning thing, but sure, yeah.
Okay. So this was new. If you could provide evidence, I would happily eat crow on this. If you could show me this happening, I think that pretty much everyone, even like the legal analyst Ellie Honing, I think was his name, the head CNN legal analyst. I think he admitted that it was a novel theory. I think pretty much everyone admits that. But let's take this in a different direction. So the claim was basically that Trump committed a campaign finance violation, correct? Because he had paid Stormy Daniels, and the way that the payment occurred was that actually his lawyer, Michael Avenatti, made that. Or I'm sorry, Michael Cohen. Avenatti is the other guy. His lawyer, Michael Cohen, made that payment. Yes? Or you don't
I believe
know?
So.
Okay, so and then it was a campaign contribution because that was to benefit the campaign, right? Paying off Stormy Daniel. And Michael Cohen, because he used his own money, that was contributing to Trump, basically. And so then they falsified the records by saying this was just for normal legal expenses. But in reality, it wasn't for normal legal expenses. It was to help with the campaign. It was a campaign expenditure. And there's a limit on how much an individual.
Right.
Okay. Would it shock you to learn that in the exact same district, in the exact same election, Hillary Clinton's team did exactly that? Would that shock you to learn that?
Perhaps.
So the FEC, actually, Hillary settled for this, but the FEC took a settlement for Hillary's team way before the Bragg case that showed, and you know this because we talked about it last time, that they had improper paperwork. They said when they were paying Fusion GPS, it was for like legal fees or something, but actually it was for campaign research. So they had to pay
hang on. Okay, real quick. You're saying improper paperwork versus falsifying business records.
Well, that would be falsifying.
I think I'm not 100% sure. You might be able to characterize it that way. I'm not 100% sure that that maps on perfectly.
Okay,
but also,
I'm sorry.
I think the intent probably is a big part of it, which I imagine is why a grand jury found probable cause to indict Trump on 34.
How would you prove the intent?
I don't know. I assume the jury had something like about
how would police or how did it even get to a grand jury? What would be the necessary steps that you would, if you're saying, well, wait a minute, before you file a charge like that, you would have to prove intent. Wouldn't the
well, no, I'm sorry. I'm saying that that's like I'm saying that intent is probably part of why the conclusion came to him actually like being convicted of those felonies.
Nonetheless, wouldn't a necessary precursor to that be an investigation being opened? So, for example, it would be very hard to know what someone's intent was if there's never a legal investigation in the first place, right?
Sure. You're saying there was never a legal investigation, but there was a legal investigation into the Hillary stuff, right? Because she got that charge.
No, there wasn't.
Got the fine, right?
Or the FEC doing a campaign
ended up paying the $100,000 fine, right?
True. The FEC doing a campaign finance violation is different than Alvin Bragg, who apparently was very concerned going like what at this point, like 4 years back. 5 years back, he was very concerned about improper paperwork, and he said, this warrants scrutiny. Let's investigate. Why didn't he do it with Hillary's team if he knew that they also filed improper paperwork to affect the election?
It sounds like there was in fact investigation into that, which is why she ended up
there was not an investigation into whether or not that she improperly filed paperwork to affect the election by some other crime. They did not do that. That's why it's important. Bragg did a novel legal theory. On one hand, right, like, and by the way, the FEC,
was he charged with impacting the or was he charged with campaign finance violations specifically?
Who, Trump?
Yeah.
It was this like 3-part thing, right? He was charged with falsifying records to affect the election through the commission of another crime. But that's exactly what Hillary's team, it looks like they did. The difference is Bragg chose to investigate Trump, but chose not to investigate Hillary. The fact that the FEC looked into this, that's not a criminal investigation. Bragg is charging felonies. So is your argument here, well, as long as someone gets a civil penalty of fine, even if they committed felonies, Bragg would have no interest in looking into that? Because I wouldn't have had a problem if Bragg said, hey, Trump, tisk, tisk, that was a campaign finance violation. You owe us $100,000. But that's not what happened. He charged him with like 37 felonies, right? Which then the Democrats used as Trump's committed 37 felonies for committing the same crime that we know Hillary's team did. And yet Bragg didn't investigate that.
I'm not entirely sold on your characterization that Hillary did the exact same crime.
The FEC disagrees.
Okay. I don't think so. I don't think they agree that the same exact thing happened. But I know that there was a fine that was paid, so there was like some sort of at least I guess maybe a civil investigation or whatever you call it.
Do you think, given the facts that we see with Hillary's team, should there have been an investigation by Bragg, who's doing criminal investigations, not civil fines like the FEC? Should he have investigated Hillary to see what her intent was?
Perhaps. I don't know why they didn't. So
I think we know why.
I'm kind of agnostic.
We know why Democrat Alvin Bragg did not investigate Hillary Clinton.
Well, you're speculating this because he just loves Hillary and hates Trump, right?
No, I'm speculating it has nothing to do with loving Hillary, just like all of you people.
Just because he hates Trump primarily.
That's right. All of you people's central political ideology is Orange Man bad. And you don't give a shit if random Democrats go down with the Orange Man. You just care to go after Orange Man. This was clearly a political stunt in an entire campaign season filled with lawfare political stunts to go after Donald Trump and tie him up with lawfare. Fortunately, it backfired on all of you. Now we have our great President Trump. Hopefully he'll run for a third term. That would be fantastic. Trump 2028.
Well, he very likely will. So I guess, we'll see. I mean, he's definitely he's demonstrated that he doesn't like leaving office when he's supposed to. So, well,
do you want to keep on the lawfare? You want to go to part 3 on the lawfare? Letitia James?
Yeah, sure. So Letitia James ran on a platform of accountability, especially for wealthy fraudsters like Trump, but her civil fraud case didn't rely on rhetoric. It relied on documents, testimony, and a judicial ruling. Okay.
Yes or no? My claim was she ran while she was campaigning on getting Trump.
Let me look at the specific. Sure.
Okay, so where's the misinformation in my statement?
So to be clear, I once again, I'm not accusing every single thing here of being misinformation. What my main contention, I mean, I don't think I ever said every single thing in Rob's everything in Rob's document is a lie. I don't think I ever made that claim. I don't think I ever would make that claim. I think what the more nuanced claim I did make early on in the intro was that when you're going very fast and stacking claims that sound stronger together than they are alone, I think it's important to untangle that and separate the signal from the noise. Those are my exact words.
But wasn't
and I would agree when it's fair, pause when it's murky, and at the very least, make sure we know what we're arguing about.
Okay, but wasn't it true that the entire reason for this, the reason I sent you the document in the first place, was the great Sarah Tomato hosted a panel. You came on afterwards in the open panel, and you gave this soliloquy about Rob spreads misinformation, which resulted in me sending you this document. Of course, you're not going to say every statement I said was misinformation, but the audience and me were hoping you'd find one example. So you might say,
so again, I think I still think
misinformation.
Yeah. Well, I think the suspected Russian spy collusion, that Hillary colluded with a suspected Russian spy, I think that's misinformation. I don't think that was demonstrated at all. I think, in fact, that was quite a stretch.
I don't think he did so well on that.
Collusion there.
I'm just making the point. I'm just making the point. Each of these that you go through, I'm like, where's that misinformation? And if you're like, well, I'm not really saying it is, great. I'm waiting for you to prove that you believe that you won the first point. I think I and almost everyone with half a brain or more would agree that you didn't win that first point.
I believe you feel that way, sure. Okay. The second one that I would point to as as what I would identify as misinformation is saying Democrats weaponized absurd lawfare to go after Trump. I don't think that has been demonstrated either. So that's two.
I think I proved my point. You want to move on to the third one?
Okay. Let's move to obstruction and mishandling of classified documents.
Okay. So I said the third example of sort of Democrat hypocrisy was Democrats that claim to care about obstruction of justice. Okay, go ahead.
Wait, where does that say that?
Well, the entire document.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, it does. Yeah, I see. No, I see. Yeah, obstruction. Yeah, my bad.
So I said Hillary's team destroyed subpoenaed evidence. Agree or disagree?
Yes.
Okay, they did.
I'll agree. Yeah.
Okay, Biden's ghostwriter destroyed tapes once he found out there would be an investigation into Biden. Agree or disagree?
Let's see. I think so.
Okay, that's the only two statements I made there. If you want to,
do you acknowledge? So just to be clear, though, do you acknowledge that Biden's ghostwriter cooperated with investigators and the DOJ has not charged him with obstruction?
Of course, the DOJ that also didn't charge Biden because he was an old infirmed man. Yes, also didn't charge his ghostwriter, who admitted, I believe, it.
Couldn't Trump's DOJ now have done that though?
They suppose they could, if they chose to.
Why do you think they won't?
Because they find it irrelevant, because Biden's a sad old man that's irrelevant at this point, and they're actually trying to get shit done that's good for the country. I don't know, because they're not interested in using lawfare to the extent that Democrats were.
Well,
that sort of don't you think that disproves the official Democrat talking point? Let me turn the question to you. If Trump's this tyrant that's abusing the legal system to go after his opponents, then why haven't they gone after Biden and his ghostwriter yet? More importantly,
I don't think they have a strong enough case to do it, and I think that they are limited by the legal system.
I'll bet if he does, I bet if they do open an investigation, you and the other Democrats will throw your arms up and go, "Here we go! Trump's corrupt, using lawfare to go after." So on one hand, you're like, well, if this was wrong, Trump's team would investigate it. And on the other hand, if he investigate, you'll say, oh my goodness, this is Trump using lawfare, Gestapo. It's a joke.